The arrangement of matter and antimatter in balance is nothing. The perfect nothing, subject only to chaos. The big nothing may be visualized as a series of infinite circular disks made of concentric onion rings. A potential chaotic anomaly is at the infinitely small center of each set of rings, where a potential subatomic particle exists for a moment. The centers do not align. The possibility of imbalance to exist when two or more centers aligned was almost impossible, as each center was exceedingly small and an infinity away from the neighboring ring center. To remain the big nothing, particles did not exist, they were just potentials for imbalance to be exploited by chaos. Chaos does not allow balance of matter or antimatter, even in nothing. At the center of each set of rings there was a potential for two particles that would form matter in a reality and two that would be the antimatter balance to them. The centers of each disk of rings were not near each other, being infinitely apart, so they did not have a critical presence to be an imbalance that could disturb the big nothing. Chaos always exists, and the rule of endless impossibilities are possible in chaos. All was well in the big nothing dimension, until the potential centers of neighboring disks aligned, as is inevitable in chaos. The few-minute potential particles at the centers of the now aligned neighboring disks interact. This was a significant force in the nothing dimension. Their interaction caused a critical imbalance in their respective disks of nothing. This was manifested as something. Energy effect that could not exist in the big nothing. It could only exist in a separate reality. It is possible to get something from nothing. An electromagnetic particle field came into existence in the extreme cold of the created space. The imbalance can only exist in a reality, a membrane with laws that are apart from the big nothing. In a dimension, the reality tear in the big nothing existed as the 10th dimension and came into existence. Information now existed in the membrane, with laws. The string circles in the two disks had broken and the string particles released were instantly everywhere in the new 10th dimension membrane of reality. Each ring was a family of strings and would always know where its component particle parts were. A new reality membrane had been totally formed in that instant. It was no longer a ring of nothing at rest in the big nothing. The singularity exploded as an event horizon. While most matter and antimatter string particles reformed their circles and returned to the big nothing, the fact that they had existed had created the 10th dimension reality, and a universe now existed. Something had been created from nothing. The big nothing remains as an influence on reality and provides a continuing external and influential force. String bit families were made from each broken string circle. The broken bits filled the whole universe in that instant and were the building blocks of matter. They evolved into subatomic particles due to the electromagnetic forces that now existed. They would always be aware of the presence and position of the other string bits that made up the specific and unique string circle they had originated from. Reality is energy driven by the power potential and is always trying to recreate the balance that is nothing, to be reclaimed by the big nothing. Nothing cannot exist in reality. The big nothing is an infinite source of potential energy to drive a reality in a universe. Any reality that is newly created is separate from any other existing reality. Each reality is separate in a reality dimension, with a unique set of physical laws. Each reality is not in the big nothing. Our reality membrane contains real something subject to our laws of physics. The string bits are made up of positive matter and antimatter. In balance they are nothing. They exist because they were disturbed and are now in imbalance. Humans thought that this event was 13 billion years ago, but it happened well before that, perhaps 25 billion years ago. We have the impression that our universe is all that exists, as local information is all we can experience. The strings had no space-time frame or effect on the big nothing. They existed everywhere in the membrane as they were the membrane at the creation event. The membrane set the laws of physics, based on the ripple pattern of the first disturbance and potentials, when matter and antimatter came into being in the 10th dimension. These laws of physics apply in our universe. In the beginning instant of our universe, there was no gravity or light or atoms. Strings evolved to create the first particles due to electromagnetic effects. These string bits clumped together to form atoms like hydrogen in the membrane spacetime. The string particles and atoms continued to interact in the extreme cold. There were a few atoms of helium and even fewer lithium atoms, as matter and energy interacted. Distance is moved by particles, as they clump because of electromagnetism. Time and space is a measure that relates to this movement of the broken string circles and atoms. So, space-time began and passed. There was resultant heat from this first instant of creation, movement and destruction in our universe. The ninth dimension resulted from the parts that made up the original 10th dimension potentials of this reality. The music of our reality. The energy gradient made the first particle energy potentials try to degrade. Simple systems self-organize because there is feedback that follows the laws of physics in our universe. Chaos created pockets of organized energy available for evolution and degrading, but all started as part of the 10th dimension potential. We are the interpretation of the code written on the surface of our reality membrane in the 10th dimension, which is not part of the big nothing.